Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from the IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Matrix lab. This is the video number 12. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been working on creating a file server and then creating different folders and share them to different departments and set on them different permissions. So each department, as we have configured, will have change permission on their folder, and the IT will have full control over the folder. And we have created Active Directory home folders also for every user in our Active Directory, and set the permissions on every Active Directory home folder. And the department shares was mapped to the users using a group policy. So every user, when he log into his machine using his Active Directory account, he will find he will see two share folders, one for his department and the other for his Active Directory home folder. And this is one of the best practices, or one of the common things you will see in any multinational organization. So we have done this, and we have configured it properly, and we have documented all of our permissions and folders. So document it as a soft copy and a hard copy if this is necessary, so we can rebuild the file server if anything happened, or if there is a disaster happened. So we have done this in the previous video. Today we will continue working with the famous roles and features that is configured in any multinational organization. We need to configure the WSOS, so we'll create a new virtual machine and we will install on it Windows Server vNext 2025, and then we will install the WSOS server role feature and configure the WSOS, okay, and we will create another virtual machine and we will install Windows 10 on it. It will act as a workstation. We need to join it to the domain to test all of the different settings that we have done in all of our previous videos. For example, we need to test our 7 group policies that we have configured earlier. We need to see the different shares that will appear for the users on this workstation. We need to see the different things we have done, the different group policies, the different permissions, the different shares. All of this should be tested on a workstation. We have seen this on our servers, but we need to test it on a workstation. So today we will create 2 virtual machines, and we will promote one of them, or one of them will act as a WSOS server and the other will act as Windows 10 workstation. And we will install Windows 10 LTSC Enterprise 2021 on this workstation. This is a special type of Windows 10 Enterprise Edition. This is we have some Windows 10 Enterprise features stripped from it. So for example, Windows 10 Enterprise contains Windows Store. The Windows 10 LTSC will not contain the Windows Store, and Cortana is removed from it. So I prefer to use this feature, or I prefer to use this special edition of Windows 10 Enterprise, because it is more stable, and it doesn't contain a lot of features or a lot of software that is shipped with Microsoft Windows 10 Enterprise, especially something like Spotty, for example, or other software that is not necessary in a multinational organization. Okay, so I prefer to use this special edition of Windows 10, and actually this have a larger support, or a support life cycle. So Windows 10, we all know that it will end, I think, at 2025. This version will end at 2027. So we have a larger support life cycle for this special edition of Windows 10. So let's begin our video and see how we will create these virtual machines, how we will install on it the operating system, what are the best practices for creating virtual machines in general, especially in general. If you are creating virtual machines, what are the best practices, and what are specifically the best practices when creating virtual machines on VM Workstation Pro. Let's begin this one by one. Here is our video. The first thing we need to do is to open our Excel sheet. We have an Excel sheet that we have all of our computers in the network listed in it. Remember that. Let me show you first this Excel sheet. This is the computer's Excel sheet. Remember, this is very important. Let's first maximize the columns. These are all of our computers in the domain. Remember first that we have created all of our Active Directory objects using scripts. So this is the computers that are created in the Active Directory in different organizational units. So we will see here what we need to do. We need to take one of these computers, okay, and use its name and create a virtual machine by this name. So for example, I need to create a virtual machine by this name SMT01, which is a workstation that is pre-staged in this Active Directory organizational unit, terminals, simulation, matrix, internal. So this is one of the concepts we need to focus on. What is Active Directory pre-staging? Active Directory pre-stages, in simple terms, you create a computer object in OUs in the Active Directory before the physical machine or the physical server joins the domain. This is very, very good when you have offline conductivity between your domain controller and your remote PC or server, for example. And it is also good because most of the computers that joins the domain, they will go directly to the default OU, which is called computers in the Active Directory. This is maybe most of the IT don't like this. They need the computers to go to certain OUs that they create. So the pre-staging is useful in this case. So for example, I need the SMT01, this computer, to go to this OU, terminal simulation matrix. So what I need to do, I will create the computer object in this OU, then I will create a virtual machine, name it as the same name like this. So when it joins the domain, it will directly go to this folder, terminals simulation matrix. So we'll do this with the workstation and with the server, and I will show you what is the Active Directory pre-staging. We will see how the AI tools will help us to understand this very, very important concept. This is a very, very good and very, very famous concept that most of the system administrators use. So here we go, for example, this is, or what we need to do. First of all, we will go and create two folders in our, or the folder, we create two folders, name SMT01 and WSOS S01. These are two folders that our virtual machine files will be residing in, or they will be created in. So we will copy this one first, and then we will go to the folder that contains our virtual machines. I have it in my D partition, and then we will have my documents. Okay, here it is, and then we will have documents, then we have the VM. This contains the virtual machines VM. As we can see here, this is the primary domain controller files and the additional domain controller files. Then we have a new folder. This is for the workstation SM. It is abbreviation of simulation OU in the Active Directory. T, it's abbreviation of terminal, which was in the old times we can or we have described the workstations as terminals. This is a very, very old expression, but here I am referring with terminal to workstation. 01, this is the first terminal or the first computer in the simulation OU. So this is very, very important to have a naming convention to name your servers and workstation. We have stated this before in our earlier videos. Okay, so this is the first folder. Then we will create another folder for the WSOS. If we see the name, let's go there. Here is the name, WSOS SM01. Okay, so we'll create a folder with this name, and we can see it is in a place called mainframe. Okay, let's first, so this will go to a certain OU in the Active Directory, and this will go to a certain OU in the Active Directory when both are joining the domain. So what is the abbreviation here? WSOS Windows Server Update Service SM. It is abbreviation of simulation OU 01. This is the first WSOS server in this OU. Okay, so these are the two servers. Okay, and as another thing I need to state here that here this computer will go to a certain OU called mainframes. Mainframes are also old expression that was referred to, or its equivalent now is servers. Mainframes are old computers that act as servers, but servers is the more or the newer expression, okay, referring to mainframes, which is an old expression. So here are the two folders, okay, created. We need to go to the VM Workstation Pro and create these two virtual machines in these two folders. First of all, before going and creating these folders, or creating the virtual machines in these newly created folders, we need to go and ask the AI tools, what is Active Directory pre-staging? So the most, or the one that was very, very close to what I was explaining was the one, or was the answer provided by Gemini. There is a couple of answers, but this was the most, not the accurate one, the most close one to my explanation. So let's see what is Active Directory pre-staging, and let's listen to it.
In Active Directory, pre-staging refers to the creation of a computer account before the actual computer joins the domain. It's like setting up a profile for someone in advance, but for a computer on your network. Here's why pre-staging is useful. Placement. You can choose the specific organizational unit, OU, where the computer account will reside. By default, joining a domain puts the computer in a generic computers folder. Pre-staging lets you organize from the start. Permissions. You can pre-configure permissions on the computer account for easier administration. Deployment control. With Windows Deployment Services, WDS can use pre-staging information to determine how to handle computer deployments. There are a couple of ways to pre-stage a computer account. Active Directory Users and Computers, ADUC. This graphical tool lets you browse your directory and create new computer objects within specific OUs. Command line. The WD-Sutil command line tool offers some pre-staging functionality for Windows Deployment Services. Overall, pre-staging is a handy practice for managing computer accounts in your Active Directory domain. It gives you more control over organization, security, and deployment.
Very, very simple and straightforward answer, and what we were explaining, it was uh, explained with the Gemini AI tool. Let's go to Perplexity and see a more rich answer, or a more sophisticated answer. Maybe not sophisticated, but I tell him to explain it in simple terms. But let's see also the answer of Perplexity. Just a moment.
Active Directory, AD, prestiging is a process where an administrator creates a computer account within the Active Directory domain controller before the actual client computer is added to the domain. This step is crucial in managing the computer accounts and ensuring that the client computer is properly integrated into the domain when it joins the network. In simple terms, prestiging allows administrators to prepare the Active Directory for a new computer before it is actually connected to the network. This ensures that the computer account is already created and ready for the computer to join the domain, which streamlines the process and prevents any potential issues that might arise from creating the account after the computer is already connected. Prestiging is particularly useful in scenarios where multiple computers need to be added to the domain at once, such as in large-scale deployments or when setting up a new network infrastructure. By pre-creating the computer accounts, administrators can save time and reduce the complexity of the process, making it easier to manage the computers and ensure they are properly integrated into the domain. To prestige a computer account in Active Directory, administrators typically follow these steps. Log in to the Active Directory domain controller with the necessary credentials. Open the Active Directory Users and Computers snap-in. Right-click on the desired container or organizational unit where the computer account should be created. Select New and then Computer to create the new computer account. Enter the computer's hostname and NetBIOS name correctly to ensure successful pre-staging. Optionally, Specify the user or group that will be authorized to add the computer to the domain. Click OK to save the changes. By pre-staging computer accounts in Active Directory, administrators can efficiently manage the computers and ensure they are properly integrated into the domain, making it easier to manage network resources and maintain security.
So this is also a good answer, maybe not straightforward like Gemini, but it also reveals some facts about the pre-staging. But this for me is a good one, and it's having some useful information. For example, that the computers are added uh, to a certain default folder when they join the domain to the computers OU. So this is one of the things that was not stated by Perplexity. Let me first close the Telegram. So let's go to another new tool. Actually, I have discovered it's something called Rika. This is a new AI tool that they say that it overcomes Claude Opus. Okay, so I tried to discover this AI tool and see its answers, and actually I am a little bit optimistic about this tool. So let's see also the answer of Rika, which is a new free tool, that AI tool that offers some good answers. Let's first see what was the answer of Rika. Just a moment.
Active Directory, AD, prestiging is a process used to prepare and configure computer accounts and other related objects in Active Directory before the actual physical computers join the domain. This process is particularly useful when deploying a large number of computers or when deploying computers in remote locations where connectivity to the Active Directory domain controller may be limited, and create computer accounts in Active Directory limited or unavailable. With AD prestiging, you can create and configure computer accounts, group memberships, and other relevant information in Active Directory ahead of time. This allows you to have a consistent and organized environment when the computers are eventually connected to the domain. Here are some key aspects of AD prestiging. Computer account creation. You can create computer accounts in Active Directory using tools like the Active Directory Users and Computers, ADUC, Console, or PowerShell. These accounts are created in a prestiged state, meaning they exist in the directory but are not yet associated with a physical computer. Group membership. You can assign computer accounts to specific organizational units, OUs, and groups within Active Directory. This helps in managing permissions and applying group policies consistently across the computers. Preparation for joining. Prestiged computer accounts can be configured with necessary information like the computer name, operating system, and other relevant settings. This makes the process of joining the computer to the domain smoother and more automated. Joining the domain. Once the physical computers are ready and have connectivity to the Active Directory domain controller, they can be easily joined to the domain using the prestiged computer account information. This can be done manually or through automated deployment scripts and systems like System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM, or Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, MDT. Overall, AD prestiging streamlines the process of deploying and managing large numbers of computers in an Active Directory environment. It ensures that all necessary configurations are in place before the computers are connected to the domain, saving time and effort in the deployment process.
So we can see,
Explain in simple terms.
just a moment.
Rika Core.
Okay, this is the answer, and I'm trying to tell it to explain in simple terms, but actually this is very, very simple to comprehend. It's very, very simple. So we will close this one. So we have three different answers from three different AI tools, and they all give us a vision about what is Active Directory pre-staging. So let's go and continue our scenario. Here we will close this very important Excel sheet, which will act as an inventory. So we'll use it with the association of our scripting scripts to create the computers, and they will act as our inventory for our PCs. Okay, so now we have two. Now we need to create our virtual machine. First of all, we need to see we have two options. One is typical creation and custom creation. Typical creation, all you need to do is to give him the operating system you need to install on the virtual machine, and it will give this virtual machine default hardware resources. For example, if you tell him Windows 10, it will give him or give this virtual machine 2 gigabyte of RAM, a hard disk, a simple hard disk with a certain amount, two processors. So it will give it default configuration setting. Okay, so this is the typical one. For the custom, you can configure the different configuration setting for the virtual machine. For example, the hardware, if you need more RAM, it will give you the flexibility to configure all of the hardware. It will not give you predefined configuration for the virtual machine. So we can use the typical and then we can custom it later. But anyway, what are the best practices when creating virtual machines on the VM Workstation Pro? Also, I have asked the AI tools. One of them is the ChatGPT 4. So I tell him what are the best practices for creating a virtual machine in VM Workstation Pro 17.5. Let's see what was the answer of ChatGPT. Just a moment.
Creating a virtual machine, VM, in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 involves several best practices that can help ensure the VM runs efficiently and securely. Here are some key recommendations. System requirements. Ensure your host system meets the necessary requirements for running VMware Workstation Pro 17.5, including adequate RAM, CPU, and storage. Running multiple VMs requires more resources. Install the latest version. Always install the latest version. Always use the latest version of VMware Workstation Pro to take advantage of new features, security patches, and performance improvements. Allocate resources wisely. Memory. Allocate enough memory to the VM without starving the host system. A good rule of thumb is to leave at least 2 gigabytes of RAM free on the host. Processor. Assign the number of processor cores based on the VM's workload needs. Over-allocating processors can actually degrade performance due to CPU scheduling complexity. Hard disk. Use VMware's virtual disks, VMDK, and consider the type of disk, thick provision lazy zeroed, thick provision eager zeroed, or thin provision, based on your performance needs and storage availability. Network configuration. Use NAT if you want the VM to share the host's IP address, which is good for general use. Use bridge mode if the VM needs to appear as a separate device on the network, which is useful for server simulation. Use VMware tools. Install VMware tools in your VM. This suite of utilities improves the performance of the guest operating system and enhances the interaction between the host and the guest, e.g., better mouse and screen handling, file drag and drop, and clipboard sharing. Security settings. Keep your guest operating system and applications updated with the latest patches. Use antivirus and anti-malware software within the VM if it will be exposed to potential threats. Configure firewalls appropriately on both the host and guest systems. Snapshots. Use snapshots to save the state of a VM before making changes such as software installations or system updates. Snapshots are useful for reverting the system to a known good state, but should not be used as long-term backups. Backup. Regularly backup the VM files, VMDK and VMX, to an external storage device or network location to safeguard your data against hardware failure, data corruption, or accidental deletion. Optimization. Disable unnecessary hardware such as USB controllers or sound cards if not needed. Adjust the display settings based on your actual needs to free up video memory. Use solid-state drives, SSDs, for storage to improve performance. Documentation and labeling. Maintain good documentation of your VM settings and configurations. Label your VMs clearly within VMware Workstation Pro to keep track of their purposes and configurations. Following these best practices can help you maximize the performance and efficiency of your VMs while ensuring their security and manageability.
Good view.
What is the optimal?
Just a moment. This is the answer. This is very, very good answer and gives us a lot of things to think about when working with VM Workstation Pro or vSphere. So this can also apply to vSphere. You need to make sure that, for example, your host have enough memory and processor and hard disk so it can handle the virtual machines that will be created on it, or it can handle the guests that will be created on it. So this is one good steps or best practices. If we go to Gemini, we will see also another answer, which is for my opinion is also a good answer. Let's see what is the answer of Gemini.
Here are some best practices for creating a virtual machine, VM, in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5. Before you start, check hardware compatibility. Ensure your host machine's CPU supports hardware virtualization features like VTX or AMDV. Refer to VMware's knowledge base article for details on how to check for compatibility. Link to docs.vmware.com. Allocate resources wisely. Consider your host machine's available memory, RAM, and storage. Allocate enough RAM and disk space for the VM to function smoothly, while leaving enough for your host OS and applications. Creating the VM. Specify guest OS. Clearly define the operating system you plan to install on the VM, e.g., Windows 10, Ubuntu. This helps VMware choose appropriate settings. Choose disk format. Use virtual SCSI hard disks, VMDK, for optimal performance. Consider splitting the disk into multiple files for easier management. Network configuration. Decide on the network connection type for the VM. Bridged networking allows the VM to act like a separate device on your network, while NAT, network address translation, keeps it isolated but allows internet access. Host-only networking creates a private network for VMs to communicate without external access. Optimizing the VM. Install VMware tools. Once the VM is created and the guest OS is installed, install VMware tools within the VM. This enhances performance, enables features like copy-paste and drag-drop between host and guest, and provides better graphics support. Snapshots. Utilize snapshots to create restore points for your VM. This allows you to revert to a previous state if something goes wrong during configuration or testing. Security. Consider encrypting the VM for added security, especially if it contains sensitive data. VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 offers encryption options during VM creation. Additional resources. VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 User Guide, link to docs.vmware.com. Performance Best Practices for VMware Workstation, link to www.vmware.com. How to use VMware Workstation 17 Pro, tutorial, YouTube video. This video covers features and tips for using VMware Workstation Pro.
So we can see here this is good best practices, and these are the resources that we can get this best practices from. I think I need to see this PDF because I think this will be a good one. So let's see here, saying that terminology, CPU, I need all to have a look on it. So this is a good documentation. Hardware for VM Workstation Pro, this section, hyper-threading, okay, this allows single core to act at logical core, hardware assisted virtualization. I think this is a very good PDF. We can download it and ask one of the AI tools to summarize it. For example, let me save this PDF. Okay, this is a good one. Let me see first when it was issued. this is an old one. Maybe this is copyrighted to 2007, 2009, so I think it is not a new one, it's an old one. But let's verify this and see NAS or NAS or storage or RAID. Okay, I need to do a little bit of a test here. So this is performance. Let's go there and save it. Okay, and I need to go to our Rika, which is a new AI tool, and tell him to analyze this PDF. Let's go and see. It's an MDT lab, and I think I put it in videos. Yes, this is the one. And let's see what will be the answer. Summarize this PDF. And give bullet points. Let's see what will be the answer. And actually I can ask also Claude 3 to summarize this PDF. Okay, a good answer actually. Intel speed, AMD power now, Intel hyperthreading, disable, HE1 halts, workstation configure the latest VM, configure virtual machine with the appropriate CPU, host only for virtual if you don't intend to get the virtual machines to the internet, use supported operating system, install VMware tools, disable unnecessary services, use ballooning, page sharing, and memory overcommitment to optimize usage. Storage management, use growable or pre-allocated virtual disks depending on your needs. Okay, this is one a good answer actually. Use high-speed storage devices. Okay. Networking, use high-speed LTSC, performance monitoring. Okay, this is a good answer actually, and it also summarizes a couple of things. So good, very, very good answer actually. And let's go to Claude and see also how it will summarize this PDF. Let's go and go to videos. I think I have this. Here is the PDF. Let's tell it to summarize this PDF. Okay, let's go there. Here we go, summarize this PDF. Okay, now we can go and tell it to summarize this PDF. Okay, and give bullet points. Okay, conversion 6% over length. Okay, because this is saturated uh, uh, saturated chat. I will add a new chat, and then let's go there and tell it to summarize this PDF. Here we go. Now we can see this performance. Okay, and then let's see the answer. Okay, as we can see here, this is also a very good summary. Here is saying that key points: hardware use CPUs with hardware virtualization. This is for the virtual machine. You need to have a CPU that supports virtualization. You should have, for example, or Intel, something called Intel VT-X and AMD-V. So this feature should be on AMD processors, and this feature should be on Intel processors to support virtualization, enable hyperthreading and hardware-assisted MMU virtualization, allocate sufficient memory and storage resources for host and VMs or guest and host, use high-performance networking hardware supporting offload features. This is, I think, this is general guidelines, and then for the host configuration, disable unnecessary services on non-default setting, enable disk write caching and DMA. or direct memory access, optimize network interfaces setting. Okay, this is for the host configuration, the three. Workstation and VM configuration use recommended virtual hardware versions, allocate CPU and memory resources appropriate to VMs, enable memory over commit techniques, file sharing or page sharing, ballooning, use virtual SCSI disks and pre-allocated disk formats, uh, or pre-allocated, remove unused virtual devices, disable debug mode and configure logging, guest optimization, okay, use para virtualize operating system and enable VMI, use kernel. I think this is okay. I think these are enough. Optimize guest OS timer, interrupt rates and idle loops. Okay, I think this is maybe not understandable, but the one for Rika was more understandable. So I think this is good one. So we can see here that this is a very, very good answer. I need to read it, okay, so we can comprehend. So we have seen the best recommendations for ChatGPT and for Gemini, and we have seen a PDF from VMware website that also have key points for best performance practices for VM Workstation Pro. Let's read this recommendation just a moment.
Here are the key points from the Performance Best Practices for VMware Workstation PDF. BIOS settings. PDF. Hardware recommendations. Use CPUs with Intel VTX or AMD EPT/RVI, and high memory DMA support. Allocate sufficient memory to the host and virtual machines. Use high-speed storage devices, SSDs, for virtual machine files. Use high-speed, low-latency networking for virtual machines. BIOS settings. Enable Intel SpeedStep, AMD PowerNow, and Intel Hyperthreading. Disable C1E halt state. Workstation configuration. Use the latest version of VMware Workstation. Configure virtual machines with appropriate CPU, memory, and storage settings. Use host-only or NAT networking for virtual machines. Guest operating system configuration. Use supported guest operating systems. Install VMware tools for improved performance and functionality. Disable unnecessary services and settings. Memory management. Use ballooning, page sharing, and memory overcommitment to optimize memory usage. Storage management. Use growable or pre-allocate virtual disks depending on your needs. Use high-speed storage devices for virtual machine files. Networking. Use high-speed, low-latency networking for virtual machines. Use appropriate network settings for virtual machines. Performance monitoring. Monitor CPU, memory, storage, and network usage to identify performance issues. Schedule regular backups and updates to maintain system performance. Responses can be incorrect. Please verify the accuracy.
So you can see this is also a good answer, but let me show you also another answer for Rika, okay, before getting this PDF. So for example, here I asked him a question: what are the best practices for creating a virtual machine in VM Workstation Pro? Let's see what was the answer. The other answer was from the VMware official PDF. Let's see the Rika answer. Just a moment.
Here are some best practices for creating a virtual machine in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5. Choose the right OS type and version. When creating a new virtual machine, select the correct operating system type and version that matches the physical machine you're emulating. This ensures the virtual machine has the right drivers and settings. Allocate sufficient memory. Allocate enough memory to the virtual machine based on the needs of the operating system and applications it will run. A good starting point is to allocate 2 to 4 gigabytes of RAM for most virtual machines, but you may need the needs of the operating system and applications it will run. A good starting point, allocate 2 to 4 gigabytes of RAM for most virtual machines, but you may need more for resource-intensive workloads. Create a separate virtual disk. Use a separate virtual disk file, .vmdk, for the virtual machine's hard drive. This allows you to easily manage the disk space and back up the virtual machine without affecting other virtual machines. Use thin provisioning. When creating the virtual disk, use thin provisioning to start with a smaller disk size and expand it as needed. This saves disk space and allows the virtual disk to grow dynamically as needed. Enable snapshots. Enable snapshots for the virtual machine to allow you to easily revert to previous states or create checkpoints for testing or experimentation. Configure network settings. Configure the network settings for the virtual machine, including the network adapter type, NAT, bridged, or host-only, and any necessary IP addresses or DNS settings. Install VMware tools. Install VMware tools in the virtual machine to enhance performance, provide better integration with the host system, and enable features like shared folders and drag-and-drop file transfers. Regularly backup virtual machines. Regularly backup your virtual machines to protect against data loss or corruption. Use VMware's built-in backup features or third-party backup solutions to create backups of the entire virtual machine or just the virtual disk files. Keep virtual machine configurations organized. Use descriptive names and folder structures to keep your virtual machine configurations organized. This makes it easier to locate and manage virtual machines, especially if you have a large number of them. Test and validate the virtual machine. Once the virtual machine is created, thoroughly test it to ensure it's functioning properly and meets your requirements. Validate that the operating system, applications, and network settings are all working as expected. Following these best practices will help you create and manage virtual machines efficiently and effectively in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5.
So you can see here, this is also a good answer, and we see a lot of answers. All of them are giving us clues and steps to make or the best practice for creating virtual machines and maintain them and backup them. This is very, very good answer. We have seen Gemini, uh, we have seen Claude, we have seen Rika. Okay, we have seen ChatGPT 4. We can also see uh, perplexity. Let's see the answer of it. Just also to complete the vision, our vision. Just a moment.
To create a virtual machine in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5, follow these best practices. Choose the right operating system. Ensure you select the correct operating system for your virtual machine. For Windows, choose the correct version, e.g., Windows 10 or Windows 11, and ensure it matches the ISO file you plan to use for installation. Select the correct hardware compatibility. VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 supports various hardware compatibility settings. For optimal performance, choose the highest setting that matches your host machine's specifications. If you encounter performance issues, try downgrading the hardware compatibility to a lower setting. Configure the virtual machine's CPU and RAM. Allocate sufficient CPU and RAM resources to your virtual machine. Ensure that the CPU and RAM usage on the host machine are not at their limits. For optimal performance, consider allocating more resources to the virtual machine than to the host machine. Use the correct disk configuration. For the virtual machine's disk configuration, choose the recommended settings for your operating system. For Windows, use the recommended SAS disk for the I/O controller and select a new feature NVMe for the disk type. Configure networking settings. For the virtual machine's network settings, select the NAT connection for the network type. This allows the virtual machine to access the host machine's network and the internet. Install VMware tools. Install VMware tools inside the virtual machine to enhance performance and improve the overall virtual machine experience. Monitor performance. Monitor the virtual machine's performance regularly to identify any potential issues. Adjust settings as needed to optimize performance. Keep VMware Workstation Pro up to date. Regularly update VMware Workstation Pro to ensure you have the latest features and bug fixes. This can help resolve performance issues and improve overall virtual machine performance. Disable power throttling. Disable power throttling on the host machine to ensure the virtual machine has access to the full processing power of the host machine. Use the correct power plan. Set the host machine's power plan to high performance to ensure the virtual machine has access to the full processing power of the host machine. Configure CPU affinity. Configure CPU affinity to ensure that the virtual machine is using the correct CPU cores for optimal performance. Monitor for malware. Regularly scan the virtual machine for malware and ensure that antivirus software is not interfering with the virtual machine's performance. Use the correct disk file name. Use the suggested disk file name when creating a new virtual disk to ensure that the disk file is stored correctly. Customize hardware settings. Customize the virtual machine's hardware settings to match the requirements of the operating system and applications being run inside the virtual machine. Take snapshots. Take regular snapshots of the virtual machine to ensure that you can easily revert to a previous state if needed. By following these best practices, you can create a virtual machine in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 that runs efficiently and effectively.
So we can see here also some or all of the AI tools have confirmed, or they have common best practices, and some add new best practices. For example, some are stated by Gemini and not stated by ChatGPT 4. Some is stated by Perplexity and not stated by Rika. So we can get different answers and combine them and get the most of these AI answers. So the last one that we will focus on, it's the answer of Claude. Let me get the answer of Claude concerning the best practices for creating VM on workstation or virtual machines or workstation or on VM Workstation Pro. Let's see the answer, just a moment.
When creating a virtual machine, VM, in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5, it's important to follow best practices to ensure optimal performance, security, and manageability. Here are some recommended best practices. Plan your VM configuration. Before creating a VM, determine the purpose of the VM, the required resources, CPU, RAM, storage, and the guest operating system you'll be using. This will help you allocate the appropriate resources and configure the VM correctly. Use the latest hardware compatibility. When creating a new VM, make sure to select the latest hardware compatibility option available. This ensures that the VM can take advantage of the latest hardware features and optimizations. Allocate sufficient resources. Allocate sufficient CPU, RAM, and storage resources to the VM based on the workload it will be handling. Avoid over-allocating resources, as this can impact the performance of the host system and other VMs. Use virtual disks wisely. Instead of using pre-allocated disks, consider using thin provision disks, which allocate storage space on demand. The required resources, CPU, demand. This can save storage space and improve performance. Enable virtualization extensions. Ensure that hardware virtualization extensions, e.g., Intel VTX or AMD are enabled in the BIOS of your host system. These extensions improve VM performance and enable advanced features. Configure networking appropriately. Determine the networking requirements for your VM and configure the virtual network adapters accordingly. VMware Workstation Pro offers various networking modes, such as bridged, NAT, and host-only. Enable security features. Enable security features like virtual machine encryption, secure boot, and trusted platform module, TPM, support, if required by your use case. Use snapshots judiciously. VMware snapshots can be useful for rolling back changes or testing scenarios, but they can also consume significant disk space and impact performance. Use snapshots judiciously and remove them when no longer needed. Keep the VM and host system updated. Regularly update the VMware Workstation Pro software and the guest operating systems within your VMs to ensure you have the latest security patches and performance improvements. Automate VM management. Consider using VMware tools and scripts to automate VM management tasks, such as creating, cloning, and deploying VMs, which can save time and reduce errors. Backup your VMs. Implement a regular backup strategy for your VMs to protect against data loss or system failures. Monitor VM performance. Use VMware tools and performance monitoring utilities to monitor the performance of your VMs and make adjustments as needed. By following these best practices, you can create and manage virtual machines in VMware Workstation Pro 17.5 more effectively, ensuring optimal performance, security, and manageability. Copy.
Kroner.
What is the
So we can see that the answers are giving, or the answers given by the AI tools give us good planning for our virtual machines, how we can back them up, how we can enhance the performance, the type of hard disks that we can use to enhance the performance of the VM. So a lot of things actually we can see this will help us even to compare. We can combine and compare these answers to get the optimal answers. So these are all best practices for creating virtual machines. So let's go and begin. If you use the typical one, this will be pre-configured configuration. If you use the custom one, it will let you choose every item in the configuration of the virtual machine. So let's go to the typical one. Then we will tell him to install later. This is the operating system, Windows Server 2022, because this will be for our WSOS server. By the way, there is no option for Windows Server 2025. So to overcome this, we can use Windows Server 2022. It will accept installing Windows Server 2025 on a pre-configured virtual machine setting for the Windows Server 2022. So now we can go and put our VM in our pre-created folder. Or read the My Documents, okay, and then Documents, and then the VM. Okay, this is for the WSOS. We can take the name, copy, and paste, Control V. This is the name of the virtual machine, and then we can see it will not, it only gives us the hard disk, and here it is giving us a suggestion for 60 gigabyte. You can increase it, and I prefer to increase it more. The best practice when you are installing Windows Server to give it 300 giga or more. Okay, so this is best practice for a virtual or for a workstation or Windows 10. I prefer to have 100 or 200 gigabyte. This is only for the C partition. We will have two hard disks, one for the C, or we partition it as one partition. The whole hard disk will be one partition. It will be for the operating system, and another hard disk will be for the data, and it will be called D partition. Here we can see two options: to store as a single file, or this virtual disk will be installed or will be stored as a single file or multiple files. There is advantages and disadvantages for using both options. If you prefer to have your virtual disk as one single file, this will enhance the performance of the virtual machine, but when you copy this virtual disk from one place to another, this will be an issue. It will not be copied easily, and it can be corrupted easily because it is a single large file. As when you use or you will have your virtual disk as multiple files, this will make it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer, but may reduce performance. Okay, so it may reduce performance, but not that much. Okay, so you have the choice to use if your virtual hard disk will be one single file or multiple files. If your virtual machine will be a database, so I prefer to be as a single file to have best performance for your database. If other, you can use multiple files. For example, if you are creating a domain controller, a file server, maybe all of this can you can use the other uh, option. Here, the type of hard disk, it will be a thin provision. What we mean by thin provision, here, even though you are giving this virtual disk 300 gigabytes, it will not take it from your host hard disk. It will only take as much space as you use. For example, if you give it 300 gigabytes and you install on it Windows Server, and the Windows Server space or Windows Server operating system space is 60, then it will only take 60 from the 300 gigabyte. This is called thin provision. If you tell him to allocate all of the space, then it will take the whole 300, even though if you install operating system or not. So we prefer to have the thin provisioned system, not the thick provision system or the pre-allocated space. So let's go and continue. Now we have, as we can see here, this is pre-configured configuration. So we need to go and tweak it a little bit. We need to give it one processor. And here we will add another hard disk. You can see it's NVRAM or it's NVMe. So we can see here, if you go a little bit further, again, sorry guys, again, if you tell him to add a new hard disk, we'll have options to use hard disk type SCSI. This is an old one. We can see from recommendations that tells us to use SCSI. It's no more a newer version. There is a new version, it's called NVMe. This is the recommended one, so you should not use SCSI. We can see that the AI tools had give us some recommendation to use the SCSI. This is an old type of virtual disk type. You can use the NVMe, which is a newer and fast type of hard disks. So we will use this one, create a virtual disk. Here we can see we can give it 200. You can see here this is allocate all disk space. Now allocating the full capacity can enhance performance but requires all of the physical disk space to be available right now. This is the thick provisioned. If you click on it, then you are using the thick provisioned method. If you uncheck it, then you are using the thin provisioned concept, which is the opposite of what is stated here. If you do not allocate all of the space now, the virtual disk starts small and grows as you add data to it. These two lines is the thin provisioned method. These two lines are the thick provisioned method. So if you click on it, then you are using the thick provisioned. If you uncheck it, then you are using the thin provisioned method. Now we will split it to multiple hard disks. Next. Then we need to go and put this hard disk in its correct VM folder. So we'll go to my documents, and then go to the VM. Then we'll put it in the correct hard disk, the correct VM folder. Now we can go and add two. First, we connect this network adapter to the correct virtual network, and we will add another network adapter because we'll make network teaming, or we have two network adapter and make network teaming between them. So this is not correct. This is for the hard disk. We will tell him add, and then add network adapter, and then we can add the virtual network NAT. Okay, and we will go and insert the ISO image for the Windows Server BNext 2025 ISO. So we'll go and insert it, downloads. Here is the Insider Preview Edition. Okay, now we can go and here you can see a lot of options. One of them is the encryption. So you can encrypt the hard disk by access control. You can encrypt the virtual machine, virtual hard disk for more security. But if you do that, you need to add the TPM hardware module so the encryption key will be saved to it. Okay, so you can encrypt it you can sync the host time with the guest time through the VMware tools. You can, through this option, tell it to update the VMware tools automatically, install and download and install them automatically, and update them automatically. And we will see a lot of things here. Shared folders, we can share folders between the host and the guest. We will see a couple of options here we can use, so you can tweak the virtual machine setting from this section. Snapshot, we tell him to ask me every time I power off the machine if I can take a snapshot or not. Now we can share some folders between my laptop and my virtual machine, so we'll add the folder that contain my scripts. So here we will go and okay, this is the folder I need to share. Finish. Now we need to check something here. We need to make sure that we have our firmware UEFI. If you are installing Windows Server 2022, most of these newer operating systems or server operating systems use EFI or support UEFI firmware, and you need to check the secure boot. So these two options will uh, make your operating system more secureable. So when you purchase a server, you need to make sure that your firmware or the firmware of the server should be UEFI, and you should have the option to enable secure boot. And when you create a virtual machine, you should choose these two options. By the way, you can see that VMware has already chosen UEFI. We didn't choose this option, but it forgot to enable secure boot. So you need to check this option. Okay, now we can go and create the second virtual machine. Here I'm checking if I have the secure boot option enabled on all of the firmwares of my virtual machine. Here, for example, I forgot to do that. And you should not change the firmware might cause installed guest operating system to become unbootable. You should not check this option unless there is no operating system installed yet on the virtual machine. Okay, so take care. So we can see that I have the additional domain controller, the firmware not uh, enable secure boot. Okay, so now we will create the second virtual machine, which will have installed on it Windows 10. And here is another Windows 10 64-bit version. Next, okay, and then we will put it in the correct folder, and you will see some best practices when we are installing Windows 10 on a virtual machine, or installing Windows 10 in general. So let's go and put first the virtual machine in its correct folder, documents, then VM, then this is the correct folder. We name it correctly. We will copy and paste. Okay, and then next. Then we will make a hard disk. We'll have two hard disks. One hard disk will be one partition for the C, and another hard disk will be for the data, and we name it D. Okay, so now we can choose, or we tweak these settings. Okay, we will go and check the network, which will be net. Okay, and we will add a second hard disk. Okay, before that we'll also share some folders. Okay, and make sure of the secure boot as well, but let's first see the folder that you will share. Okay, this is it. Okay, next, and finish. Now the snapshots should ask me every time advance secure boot. Okay, and you can use different here. For example, we can see one moment here again. let me show you one option here for the VMware tools. If you see the VMware tools, okay, you can see here that synchronize guest time with the host, so synchronize your time with the guest. If a newer version of VMware tools is available, you should update it automatically. Okay, this is the best option from my opinion. Okay, so this is one thing. Now we will add a second hard disk. Next, NVMe virtual hard disk, make it 200. Next, we should put the second hard disk in the correct VM folder. Okay, now we can go and put it there and save. Okay, and finish. So now we need to insert the ISO image. This is the correct one. So I will give it more processor so I can accelerate the installation of the operating system. So we'll go and insert the ISO image. Okay, then we can begin the installation. So now we can go and put the ISO image of Windows 10 LTSC. You can download it for free or evaluation period from a Microsoft website. Okay, so now we have everything up and running. Now we can begin the installation. So you can go and power the virtual machine and begin the installation, and we will see what are the best practices for installing Windows 10 LTSC operating system. So we'll boot, and then we should have the installation wizard. So we'll wait for a moment. Okay, and now we will see this is the installation wizard. Let's go first and ask AI tools what are the best practices for installing Windows 10 operating system. Let's go and see, for example, Gemini. Let me ask it. Where is Gemini? I think I asked him earlier for Windows 10 operating system, maybe. Okay, it didn't answer it. Anyway, so let's go and see the answer of ChatGPT. What is its answer? Let's go there and see what is the answer. Let's go. Here you go. Here you go. Let's see what is. No, this one. I think the other one. Just a moment. Okay, I think no, this is not one. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here you go. This is the answer. Just a moment.
When installing Windows 10 LTSC, Long-Term Servicing Channel, 2021 Enterprise, following best practices ensures a smooth deployment and stable performance. Here are some key recommendations for setting up Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. 1. System requirements check. Processor, 1 GHz or faster compatible processor or system on a chip, SoC. RAM, 2 GB for 64-bit. Hard drive space, 32 GB or more. Graphics card, DirectX 9 or later with WDDM 1.0 driver. Display, 800 by 600 resolution or higher. Internet connection, required for updates and to download and take advantage of some features. 2. Acquire genuine software. Ensure that you obtain your Windows 10 LTSC 2021 software through proper channels such as directly from Microsoft or through an authorized reseller. This guarantees that you receive a secure, malware-free version of the software and support. 3. Prepare installation media. Use the media creation tool from Microsoft or a verified ISO to create your installation media, USB drive, or DVD. Ensure the media is formatted correctly and bootable. 4. Plan deployment. Single or multiple installations. If deploying to multiple machines, consider using tools like the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, MDT, or System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM, to streamline the process. Network settings and considerations. Plan how the machines will be integrated into your existing network and consider setting configurations for security, firewalls, VPNs, and connectivity. 5. Backup existing data. If you are upgrading from an older version of Windows, make sure to back up all important data. Even if performing a clean installation, ensure all valuable data on the machine is backed up externally. 6. Custom installation. Opt for a custom installation rather than an upgrade installation. This method cleans the hard drive and installs Windows fresh, which can help avoid legacy issues and conflicts. 7. Driver updates. After installation, update all hardware drivers to the latest versions supported by Windows 10 LTSC 2021. This can include graphics cards, network adapters, and peripherals. 8. Apply system updates. After installing, run Windows Update immediately to download and apply all the current updates for Windows 10 LTSC. This will protect against known vulnerabilities and ensure your system has the latest performance improvements. 9. Configure security settings. Antivirus software. Ensure that antivirus software is installed and running. Windows Defender. Configure Windows Defender settings to provide adequate protection based on your environment. BitLocker. If security is a concern, consider enabling BitLocker drive encryption to protect data. 10. Install necessary applications. Install only the necessary applications to maintain the performance and security of the system. Windows 10 LTSC is often used in specialized environments, so tailor software installations to your specific needs. 11. Optimize system settings. Adjust system settings for performance based on your needs. For example, disabling visual effects can improve performance on less powerful hardware. 12. Regular maintenance. Set up a regular maintenance schedule to check for updates, perform system diagnostics, and ensure that backups are performed regularly. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your installation of Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise is secure, efficient, and tailored to your specific usage requirements.
So you can see very good answer and give us also a broad vision or what are the common things we need to focus on when you are installing a Windows 10 operating system. Let's see the best practices for or from the point of view of uh, perplexity. Okay, so let me see here uh, or give you the answer of perplexity. Just a moment. Okay, here you go. This is one thing, and also some of the good things. You have also a good answer. Just wait for a moment.
Here are the best practices for installing Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. Ensure hardware compatibility. Verify that the target hardware meets the minimum requirements for Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise, including CPU, RAM, storage, and graphics. Refer to the official Microsoft documentation for the exact specifications. 1. Create a backup. Before starting the installation, create a full backup of the system to ensure data can be restored in case of any issues during the process. 1. What are the best practices for creating a virtual machine?
Sorry guys, just a moment.
Check for known issues. Research any known issues or compatibility problems with the specific hardware and software you plan to use with Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. Refer to Microsoft's documentation and community forums for the latest information. 1. What are the best practices for
So this is very obvious. So this is not correct. Let me again try to read out the answer. Just a moment.
Check for known issues. Research any known issues or compatibility problems with the specific hardware and software you plan to use with Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. Refer to Microsoft's documentation and community forums for the latest information. 1.
Strange here. I don't see why it is not completing the answer. Okay, anyway, so let's close this one. Okay, he's saying here schedule installation. Plan to install updates during non-peak hours to minimize disruption to users and business operations. So you need to install the operating system when users are not in work hours. Validate updates. Test the updates in a production environment before deploying them to production systems. This is a very good point because there is some updates released from Microsoft that disrupt or some it makes some headache. For example, some updates corrupt the system, or some updates hang the system. So you need to test the Microsoft updates before applying them to a non-production environment, or you need to install your Windows 10 operating system in a virtual environment, test it before applying it or before installing it in a production environment. Monitor installation, closely monitor the installation process to ensure it completes successfully without any errors. Have a rollback plan. For example, if you are upgrading or you are moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10, you need to back up the machine with its operating system before going to a newer Windows operating system. Use approved update sources. Only install updates from trusted and approved sources like Microsoft Windows Update website, WSOS server, or Microsoft Update Catalog. Manage updates. Use tools like WSOS or Microsoft Intune to centrally manage and deploy updates to multiple systems. Ensure consistency and control over the update process. Stay informed. Keep up to date with the latest security bullets and patches and updates. You need also to make sure to always monitor the forums for any issues relating to Microsoft updates or any security issues, okay, or newer patches, okay. You can subscribe to newsletters or something, so you can be informed through them, okay. So this is one thing for the best practices for installing Windows 10. We have seen the ChatGPT and we have seen Perplexity. We can go to Rika and see what also is its best practice. Just wait for a moment.
Here are some best practices for installing Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. Use a clean installation. Perform a clean installation of Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise rather than upgrading from an older version. This ensures a fresh, Stable operating system. Create a bootable USB or DVD. Use Microsoft's media creation tool to create a bootable USB or DVD with the Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise installation files. This allows you to install from a reliable source. Backup important data. Before installing, backup any important data to an external drive or cloud storage. This protects against data loss during the installation process. Install updates. After installing Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise, immediately install all available updates including security updates, bug fixes, and drivers. This ensures you have a secure and stable operating system. Configure settings. Configure Windows 10 settings to match your organization's policies and standards. This includes settings for security, privacy, networking, and other areas. Install necessary applications. Install any necessary applications and software packages needed for your organization. This includes productivity tools, development tools, and other applications. Configure group policies. Use group policy to centrally manage and enforce Windows 10 settings across multiple machines. This includes policies for security, user access, application settings, and more. Enable BitLocker encryption. Enable BitLocker full disk encryption to protect the operating system and data on the machine. This provides an additional layer of security. Set up remote access. Configure remote access options like Remote Desktop and VPN to allow remote access to the Windows 10 machine. This enables remote management and support. Test and validate. Thoroughly test and validate the Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise installation to ensure it meets your organization's requirements. This includes testing applications, network connectivity, security features, and other areas. Following these best practices will help you install Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise in a reliable, secure, and standardized manner. This ensures a stable and consistent Windows 10 environment for your organization.
So we can see very good answer, okay, and actually I see after ChatGPT 4 this is the best answer from my point of view. Perplexity also a good answer. We can ask Gemini. I am eager to ask it. Let me try to ask Gemini and see if it will give us also another answer. By the way, the bootable, if you are using a physical machine, if you are using a virtual machine, then you can insert the ISO image directly to the VM Workstation Pro or your hypervisor software. So let's ask here Gemini about the best practices. If you go there and tell it, Control V, you can see these are generic uh, steps: boot check, verify UFI, create bootable image, installation, clean versus update, disconnect from internet, installation wizard, okay, license activation, post installation. Okay, I think this answer is good, okay, and it's more organized. Once connected, driver installation, antivirus, customization, additional tips, consider to backup, document. Okay, let's read the answer.
Here are some best practices for installing Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. Preparation. System requirements. Ensure your system meets the minimum hardware requirements for Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise. You can find these on the Microsoft website, Microsoft Windows 10 LTSC 2021 documentation. Backup important data. It's always wise to back up any critical data on your system before installing a new operating system. This protects your information in case of unexpected issues. Download ISO. Obtain a legitimate Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise ISO file from Microsoft. Link to Microsoft. You'll likely need a valid volume licensing agreement for this. License key. Have your Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise license key ready for activation during the installation process. Installation media creation. Boot option check. Verify your system's BIOS, UEFI settings are configured to boot from a USB drive if you're installing from one. Create bootable media. Use a tool like Rufus. Link to rufus.ie to create a bootable USB drive from the downloaded Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise ISO file. Installation process. Clean install versus upgrade. Decide if you want a clean install, wiping your entire drive, or an upgrade, installing over an existing Windows version. Upgrading might not be suitable for all scenarios, especially if your current OS has issues. Disconnect from Internet, optional. For advanced users, consider disconnecting from the Internet during installation. This can prevent automatic updates or driver installations that might conflict with your setup. Reconnect after installation is complete. Installation wizard. Follow the on-screen instructions during the Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise Installation Wizard. Choose the appropriate options for language, region, keyboard layout, etc. License activation. When prompted, enter your valid Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise license key to activate your installation. Post-installation. Windows updates. Once connected to the Internet, run Windows Update to download and install the latest security patches and critical updates for your system. Device drivers. Install the latest device drivers for your hardware components. You can get them from the manufacturer's website or use Windows Update to automatically detect and install some drivers. Antivirus, anti-malware. Install reliable antivirus and anti-malware software to protect your system from online threats. Customization. Personalize your Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise installation by configuring settings, installing desired applications, and arranging your desktop. Additional tips. System backup. Consider creating a system image backup after a successful installation. This allows you to restore your system to a known good state if needed. Documentation. Document the steps taken during installation and any specific configurations you made. This can be helpful for future reference or troubleshooting. Remember, these are general best practices. The specific steps might vary depending on your individual situation and hardware configuration.
Again, we can see very good answer. Right here, we can see there is also the AIs are giving us very good answer. Let's see the answer of Claude. Let's wait for a moment and see here what is the answer of Claude. Okay, here you go. This is the answer of Claude. Just wait for a moment.
When installing Windows 10 LTSC, Long-Term Servicing Channel, 2021 Enterprise Edition, it's important to follow best practices to ensure a smooth and secure installation process. Here are some recommended best practices. Hardware compatibility check. Before installing Windows 10 LTSC 2021, ensure that your hardware meets the minimum system requirements. Check that your CPU, RAM, storage, and other components are compatible with the operating system. BIOS/UEFI settings. Access your system's BIOS or UEFI settings and enable features like virtualization support, secure boot, and TPM, trusted platform module, if required. Create installation media. Download the appropriate Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise ISO file from Microsoft's Volume Licensing Service Center, VLSC, or obtain a legitimate installation media. Create a bootable USB drive or DVD using the Microsoft Media Creation tool. Secure boot and TPM. If you plan to use advanced security features like BitLocker or Credential Guard, ensure that Secure Boot and TPM are enabled in your BIOS/UEFI settings. Disk partitioning and formatting. During the installation process, consider creating separate partitions for the operating system, data, and any other necessary partitions. Format the partitions using the appropriate file system, e.g., NTFS. Windows updates and drivers. After the initial installation, ensure that you install the latest Windows updates and drivers for your hardware components. This will ensure optimal performance and stability. Activate Windows. Activate your Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise installation using a valid product key or a volume license key management service, VLKMS key, depending on your licensing agreement. Configure security settings. Configure security settings according to your organization's policies. This may include enabling Windows Defender, configuring firewall rules, and setting up user account control, UAC, levels. Join a domain or workgroup. If your organization uses an Active Directory domain, join the computer to the domain during the installation process or after the installation is complete. If not, you can choose to join a workgroup or remain on a standalone computer. Install necessary applications. After the installation, install any necessary applications, utilities, or software required for your work or business needs. Create a system backup. Once the installation and configuration are complete, create a full system backup or an image backup. This will allow you to restore your system to a known good state in case of any issues or failures. Implement patch management. Develop a plan for regularly installing Windows updates, security patches, and hotfixes to keep your system secure and up to date. By following these best practices, you can ensure a smooth and secure installation of Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Enterprise, while also setting up a solid foundation for ongoing maintenance and security management.
So we can see also a very, very good answer. And the last thing I think we can discuss here, how we can, or the best practice to join a PC to the domain. I think let me have a look here. Okay, let me show you also some of the things. So this virtual machine, we will join it to the domain. So what are the best practices to join a PC to the domain? We will see here also another answer here. What are the best practices when joining a workstation to a Windows domain environment? Let's see what is the answer.
Here are some best practices to follow when joining a workstation to a Windows domain environment. Preparation. Updates. Ensure the workstation has the latest Windows updates and device drivers installed. This minimizes compatibility issues and potential security vulnerabilities. Local administrator account. Create a local administrator account on the workstation before joining the domain. This provides a backup login option in case of domain access issues. Network connectivity. Verify the workstation has a stable network connection to the domain controllers. Joining the domain. Dedicated account. Use a dedicated account with the Create Computer Objects permission in the desired OU, organizational unit, within Active Directory. Avoid using a regular user account for domain join. Correct credentials. Provide the domain name, username, and password for the account with the appropriate permissions to join the domain. Post-joining tasks. Group policy updates. Allow enough time for group policy objects, GPOs, to apply after joining. GPOs define security settings, software installations, and user configurations. A reboot might be necessary for full application. Verification. Test login functionality with a domain user account and ensure access to necessary network resources. Antivirus, anti-malware. Verify that antivirus and anti-malware software are installed and functioning correctly. Domain environments can be targets for malware, so endpoint protection is crucial. Additional considerations. Pre-staging. Consider pre-staging a computer account in Active Directory before joining the domain. This allows for pre-configuration of permissions and placement within the desired OU. Organizational unit, OU, placement. Join the workstation to the appropriate OU within Active Directory. This helps with organization and simplifies group policy application. Documentation. Document the domain name, username, and password used to join the domain for future reference. By following these best practices, you can ensure a smooth and secure joining process for your workstation in a Windows domain environment.
So as we can see here, this is very, very good best practices for joining the domain. So we have seen the best practice for installing Windows 10, the best practice for joining a workstation to the domain. Let's see another documentation or another best practice when joining a PC to the domain from Rika. Let's see what is also the answer. Just a moment.
Here are some best practices when joining a workstation to a Windows domain environment. Use a dedicated domain join account. Use a dedicated account with the appropriate permissions to join workstations to the domain. Don't use the domain admin account for joining workstations. Join workstations to
Just a moment, guys. Let's continue, guys. Let's see the recommendation of Rika.
the domain during initial setup. Join the workstation to the domain during the initial operating system setup process. This ensures the workstation is properly configured from the start. Configure DNS settings. Configure the workstation's DNS settings to point to the domain's DNS servers. This allows the workstation to resolve domain names correctly. Set the workstation's computer name. Set the workstation's computer name to a name that follows the organization's naming conventions. This makes it easier to manage and identify the workstation. Join the workstation to the correct organizational unit. OU join the workstation to the appropriate OU in the domain. This allows the workstation to inherit the correct security policies and settings. Configure group policy. Apply the appropriate group policy settings to the workstation. This includes security policies, network settings, application configurations, and more. Install necessary updates. Install all available updates for the operating system and applications on the workstation. This ensures the workstation is up-to-date and secure. Configure security settings. Configure security settings like firewall, antivirus, and data protection to match the organization's security policies. Enable auditing. Enable auditing on the workstation to track security events and detect potential security issues. This provides an additional layer of security monitoring. Test and validate. Thoroughly test the workstation after joining the domain to ensure it is functioning properly. Validate that the workstation can access network resources, applications, and data as expected. Following these best practices ensures the workstation is properly configured, secure, and compliant with the organization's policies when joining a Windows domain environment. This helps create a stable and secure Windows environment for the workstation and the overall domain.
So we can see here these are all good best practices. My main concern only for option number 2, to join the workstation to the domain during the initial operating system setup. I don't think this is a good recommendation. You should not join this PC to the domain during the installation of the operating system. You should install the operating system first, do the best practices, update it, configure it, update the antivirus, and then join it to the domain. Okay, this is a good practice. So this is on my only main concern. If, for example, if you are or you need to get the technical steps for any one of these 10 recommendations, for example, you can ask him how you can do that. So for example, I tell him enable auditing, how we can do this. So I ask him to explain how to do step 9, give detailed technical steps. So let's see how this is done. Just a moment.
Here are detailed technical steps for enabling auditing on a Windows workstation after joining it to a domain. Open the local group policy editor by running pedit.msc as an administrator. Navigate to Computer Configuration. Double-click on the Policy Audit Object Access. Configuration. Double-click on the Policy Audit Object Access and set it to Success and Failure to audit both successful and failed object access attempts.
Okay, if there seems to be a problem with the read out loudly here, we can see that open the local group policy editor or the group policy management console from the domain controller. Then we can go to the computer configuration, Windows settings, security setting, local policies, audit policy. Then we can tell him to double click audit object access set to success and failure to audit both successful and failed object access attempts. Double click on audit privilege use and set it to success and failure to audit privilege use events. Double click on audit process tracking and set it to success and failure to audit process tracking events. Double click on audit system events, set it to success and failure to audit system events like log on and log off, system shutdown, etc. Double click on the audit user account management, set it to success and failure to audit user account management events. Review and configure any audit policies as needed for your organization security. Close the local group policy editor on the domain controller. Open the event viewer and navigate to applications and application and services log, Windows log security. I don't think there is something like this application and services log. Okay, you can go to the event viewer and check these or the security logs. Okay, uh, applications and security logs. Okay, there is security, it's not services. I think this is security logs. Okay, the security log and check the events to audit, review the security events to ensure auditing is properly configured and events are being captured. Configure any additional audit setting on the domain controller to filter and analyze the audit logs as needed. Regularly review and analyze the audit logs to detect any security events of interest and investigate any anomalies. Enable auditing on a Windows workstation provides visibility into security events and helps detect potential security issues. Properly configuring and reviewing audit logs is an important part of maintaining a secure environment. Very, very good one for applying the auditing feature. Let's see what does Perplexity say about this one. I think this is the one. Okay, here is the one, the best practices. Let's see what is the answer of Perplexity.
Joining a workstation to a Windows domain environment involves several best practices to ensure a smooth and secure integration. Here are the key steps and considerations. Preparation. Ensure the workstation's network settings are correct, including the IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS server addresses. Verify that the workstation's date and time are accurate and synchronized with the domain's time server. Install all necessary Windows updates and security patches before joining the domain. Domain joining. Use the built-in Windows tool, Domain Join, to join the workstation to the domain. This method is recommended as it ensures the workstation is properly configured for domain membership. Alternatively, you can use the netdom command line tool to join the workstation to the domain. User accounts. Create a local user account on the workstation before joining it to the domain. This account will be used for initial setup and configuration. Once the workstation is joined to the domain, the local user account will be replaced by a domain user account. Domain configuration. Ensure the workstation's computer name is unique and does not conflict with any existing computer names in the domain. Verify that the workstation's DNS settings are configured correctly to resolve the domain name. Security considerations. Use a dedicated domain join account with the least privileges necessary to perform the domain join operation. This account should not have administrative privileges. Ensure the workstation is configured to use the domain's DNS server for name resolution. Verify that the workstation's firewall settings allow necessary network traffic for domain communication. Post-join configuration. Configure the workstation's network settings to use the domain's DNS server for name resolution. Ensure the workstation's computer name is updated in the domain's Active Directory. Verify that the workstation can access shared resources and network services within the domain. Monitoring and maintenance. Monitor the workstation's performance and network connectivity after joining the domain. Perform regular maintenance tasks, such as updating the workstation's operating system and software to ensure it remains secure and functional within the domain. Best practices for specific scenarios. For workstations with specific configurations or requirements, consider using specialized tools or scripts to automate the domain join process. For workstations with sensitive data or high security requirements, consider using additional security measures, such as encryption and access controls, to protect the data. By following these best practices, you can ensure a smooth and secure integration of workstations into a Windows domain environment.
So we can see here, these are all of the best practices for joining the workstation to the domain. So we can go, and I think I said for the cloud, okay. I think we don't need something like that. Let's see if it is having, or we can ask Claude for joining. Anyway, I think this is enough. We don't need more recommendations. Let's go and see the best practice. Here we will install. This is a normal installation process. We will accept the license agreement. Next. Then custom installation. This is one of the best practices. Then we have one partition, one hard disk allocated or partitioned as one partition. And then next. Then I think we will pause the video until the installation is complete. So now the installation is finished. We need a restart. Now we will begin or complete the installation. We will enter the phase of out of the box experience. We need to provide a couple of info. The user or the second local administrator account that will access the Windows, the name of this user, the privacy setting, the keyboard layout, the keyboard language, a lot of things actually. And as we can see here, one of the best practices not to, during the setup, to let the machine access the internet, so as not to update the drivers of the PC automatically. If you have the manufacturer's drivers, so it is best to install the manufacturer drivers. Now we will skip the layout. We have already English keyboard layout installed by default. We will not add the Arabic keyboard layout because it will be installed after joining the domain automatically using the Active Directory login script. We don't have internet access. This is one of the best practices not to let the machine access the internet, at least until we finish the installation. Then we can install the drivers for the machine, and then we can open the internet and update the antivirus and update the Windows operating system. Okay, we should not log in with Microsoft account or email account to complete the setup. It's preferred to use a local administrator account, not using the Microsoft email account, because maybe if your email is hacked, or for example if it is closed, you will not be able to access the machine. So we will continue with limited setup. Then this is the local or the second local administrator account. The default one is administrator, and it will be disabled after the finishing of the installation of the Windows 10. Okay, this is the username, this is the password. Should be a complex one. Okay, and then there is the secret question. You should provide an answer for every one of these three questions, but make sure not to give a familiar answer, because most of these questions can be guessed from your Facebook account. For example, if you have a Facebook account, some of these questions are very, very common. You can provide it, or you can put it on your Facebook account. For example, your first pet name, the city that you are born in. For example, this can be taken from the Facebook account, your cousin name, or some personal data that you voluntarily put on your Facebook. Some this of this data can be taken by the hackers, and they can detect the answer and put it there. So if you answer these questions, you should give it an unfamiliar answer. For example, if you tell him my first pet name, you can put not a name, but you can put a number, or put any unique answer and unfamiliar answer that is not related to the question. This is one of the best practices as well. And to be memorable, of course, make sure that your answers are unforgettable. You can type them, or you can put it in a secure location. These are all familiar questions. Now we can close all of the privacy setting, because this is related to security issues within a multinational organization. So location, find device, advertising ID, tailored experience, or diagnostic data. So now we can begin the process. Now we need to install VMware tools. This is one of the best practices listed by all of the AI tools, to install VMware tools to enhance the performance of the virtual machine, and to share things between the guest and the host. Okay, so we'll run the setup, and then a restart should be done after this installation. Then we can put a static IP address, because we don't have internet. So after putting a static IP address, we can access the internet and uh, begin updating the antivirus and the Windows operating system. Here, this is the second hard disk. We can initialize it, but I need it to have a drive letter D, and this is currently assigned to the DVD-ROM, and there is currently an installation process from the DVD-ROM, so we'll not be able to take the D letter and assign it to the new created partition unless the installation is finished. So let's wait, just we initialize the hard disk, and then we can give it later a drive letter, because now this is currently used. Okay, so now we tell him next, then complete, then next, install. It should install the drivers and a couple of items to enhance your experience with this virtual machine. Okay, so you'll see a flicker in the screen. This is because the driver or the display driver card is installed. Now we can see that the resolution is fixed. Now we should have a restart requested. Then we should log in back and complete our preparation of this virtual machine before joining the domain. This is the second local administrator account. The first is administrator and it is currently disabled. You should take care after joining this PC to the domain. You should take care of the second local administrator account. You should disable it and make sure to change its password frequently, and the administrator account as well. Now we can see here is our setup. Now we can go to the control panel and then add a static IP address so we can access the internet. Now we can take the view to small icons, then go to the network and sharing center. Okay, Ethernet. Now we can go to the properties and then we should give it a static IP address from our DHCP range. It's not currently used, but we know our workstation IP range. So it's 192.168.79 from 20 until 200. So we will give it 21. This is from a previous video. 192.168.79.2. This is the gateway. And then we should put the preferred DNS, our gateway, because it contains a DNS, or it contains DNS servers, external DNS servers, and we can put the alternative DNS to be Google DNS server 79.2, then 888 or 8844. These are a couple of working Google external DNS servers. So now you can see we have internet access. Now we can update our antivirus and update our operating system. And along the way, we should change the name of this PC to be SMT01. Okay, so it is the system. And then we can go to advanced setting and or rename this PC. Then change the computer name to SMT01. This is the pre-staging that we have said before or in the beginning of this video. Okay, now we can change the name and then we should have a restart. Okay, restart now. Then we should complete our process. Now we have the IP address set to access the internet. The name of the PC is changed. Now we need to update the operating system and the antivirus. And after that, we will remove the static IP address and close the virtual machine. Okay, then we should join it to the domain, but we should first power on these two domain controllers. Okay, now we have internet access. We can go to the setting and make Windows updates and antivirus updates. From the Windows security, we can go to the antivirus first. You do not depend upon Windows Defender. You should install a third party and disable Windows Defender. It's not as efficient as most famous antivirus products. I'm just using it because I don't have a license antivirus. Now we can go and tell him to update, check for updates, and then we can go and update the operating system. Now we can go to Windows updates, then we can check for updates. So this will take some time. So we'll pause the video until the update. We can see here there's some downloads of updates. After it is installed, we should check again for updates because most of the updates are not installed from the first time. Okay, so we can see here still the update process is working, or it is in progress. So now we can go to the disk management, and our newly added hard disk, we need to format it as one partition. Okay, and give it the D letter, but before that we need to change the drive letter D. Take it from the DVD and give it to the newly created partition. Now the DVD is E, drive letter is E. Now we can go and give the D letter to the newly created partition. Then we name it as data. So it's the best practice to have two hard disks. Okay, each hard disk will be one partition, one for the operating system and one for the data of the user. If you don't have enough hard disks, then you have only one hard disk. Partition it as two partitions, one partition for the operating system and the other for the data for the user. Okay, so you can see now we have all of these are done and configured. These are the EFI or the boot partition and the recovery partition. This is the data partition. So now we can continue with our installation process. Okay, so now we have that. The antivirus is still updating. Go again. Okay, so installation. Okay, now it is updated. Now we need to wait for the other update. So also one of the best practices listed by the AI tools before joining the PC to the domain to make sure it is fully updated. Okay, now you can see. Okay, so now it will take some time. Okay, now we have only one update left. Now we need to install it, then restart, and then again check for updates. Before that, I think here is the WinVer to give you the version of the Windows. This is Windows 21H2, Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC. So you should know this is not a normal Windows 10 Enterprise operating system. This is the special edition. Okay, now we can see the installation process is working. Now we have installing 90%. So in pending a restart, it should restart and then check for updates again, and then after making sure that everything is updated, we can remove the static IP address, close the virtual machine, and in the upcoming video we'll begin working with uh, making this virtual machine a WSOS server, installing the operating system, then install the WSOS server role feature. Okay, so now we will log in and then we'll check for update again. So again start, then setting. As we can see here, this operating system doesn't contain any Windows Store applications or some of the built-in Windows applications like for example Spotty or Spotify, or some applications that are uh, third-party tools. Okay, we can check for updates. We will find a couple of updates. We need to install them. Okay, we have a couple of updates. One of them will fail because it is a supersede updates anyway. So we can remove this one. We can go to the Windows security and make sure that our antivirus is updated. So we can go again to the Windows security and make sure the antivirus is up to date. Again, antivirus threat. Okay, so we can go double check. Okay, so this is already updated. If we need to check for updates again, okay, we can go further and continue. So at the end, updates are finished, so we can go to the control panel and remove the static IP address. So now it will fail again this update, but anyway, I know the issue, but we need after finishing the update, so we'll close and then go to the control panel and remove the static IP address. And now we have this PC ready for joining the domain because it is up to date. We have the drivers installed, we have the Windows operating system installed, we have the antivirus, but here you can add the manufacturer drivers, but I prefer to use the VMware drivers because this will ensure it have best performance, okay, in a case of a virtual environment. Okay, so okay, then we remove IP version 6 because it is not needed anymore. Then we can close, and then okay, and then we can shut down the machine. Here I need to uh, we will stop actually at this minute 27:24, but I need to ask the AI some questions. Let's go to we can ask ping here. Is it better in a virtual machine in VMware Workstation Pro 70.5 to install drivers that are included with VMware tools, or install manufacturer drivers. So here he recommend to use the drivers that are included with VMware tools. Okay, and this is some of the drivers that it is installed by automatically. Okay, there is may some specific cases you would want to use manufacturer drivers. For example, for Windows hosts, a GPU that supports Direct 11 is required. Let's see one of these cases. Say the GPU that supports DirectX 11 is required. Also, the Windows 7 will not install in a virtual machine if you are using versions of Workstation Pro any. So there is some cases, but not as much, or they are rare. So while VMware tools are generally recommended for most use cases, there might be some specific scenarios, okay, that you should have manufacturer drivers. Please note that exact steps may vary depending on the specific version of the Workstation Pro that you are using. Okay, please refer to official VMware documentation. Okay, so this is a good answer. If you go and ask Perplexity, and you can ask Rika again, and you ask Claude as well. Mhm. So let's see what Perplexity has to say. So he's saying here that consider the following. Compatibility. VMware tools are designed to work seamlessly with VMware virtual machines, are optimized for performance. They are also updated regularly to ensure compatibility with the latest VMware versions. Manufacturer drivers, on the other hand, might not be optimized for virtual environments. This is the correct answer. Performance. VMware tools are designed to provide the best possible performance. Okay, very good. Manufacturer drivers may not be optimized for virtual environments, so here is supporting that we should install drivers that are included with the VMware tool support. VMware provides extensive support of VMware tool drivers, including documentation, troubleshooting guides, community forums. Okay, to receive the same level of support. Okay, customization. Drivers are designed to work with a large wide of virtual machines and operating systems. They are highly customizable, allowing you to tailor these driver setting to your specific needs. Manufacturer drivers may not offer the same level of customization. Security are designed within security in mind. Okay, manufacturer drivers may not receive the same level of security updates. Okay, good one, good answer, very, very good answer. Compatibility with VMware features. Tools are designed to work with VMware features like VMware Sphere, VMware SAN, VMware so and so. Manufacturers may not compatible with these features, which could limit the functionality of your virtual machine. Future updates are regularly updated to ensure compatibility with the latest VMware versions and address any issues that might arise. Okay, so generally it's recommended to install drivers included with VMware tools. Very, very good answer. Go to the RECA, let's see what is the answer. It is generally better to install the drivers that are included with VMware tools rather than manufactured drivers. Here is why. Compatibility. Okay. Drivers are specifically designed to test work with seamlessly with VMware Workstation. Okay, very, very good. Integration. These are fully integrated with VMware Workstation. They work seamlessly with VMware features like snapshot management, time synchronization, drag and drop. Manufactured drivers might not integrate as well as with VMware. So there is some features that will not work unless the drivers of VMware tools are installed. Okay, so this is one of the features. Compatibility, it is compatible with the VM Workstation Pro. Support of VMware tools. Encounter any issues, you can contact the support. Security, designed for security. However, there are some cases you can install the manufacturer drivers if you need specific features or performance that is not only available with the manufacturer drivers. If I tested with the manufacturer drivers and they work well in your virtual environment. In most cases, so this is also a good answer. Short, but a good answer. If we go to Cloud. For best performance, it's generally recommend to install the drivers included with VMware tools. Okay. Optimize drivers for video and storage controller designed for specifically virtual environments. Some of the key benefits. Video provides, okay, network. These are the benefits of using video drivers for from VMware, network drivers from VMware, storage drivers from VMware, mouse drivers. However, there are some exceptions again. So uh, anyway, so we can see they all recommend to use the VMware tools drivers because they are optimized for working with the virtual environment of VMware. Okay, so very, very good. So we can ask again this question for Gemini to get, maybe we can get a different answer. Again, compatibility with VMware product, simplified installation, consistency. We will ensure a consistent driver experience across different VMs you create in a VM Workstation Pro. Again, some specific scenarios we need to use the manufacturer drivers. Okay, anyway, so they have all the same, so we will stop here. The upcoming video will work with creating or installing uh, Windows Server 2025 on a virtual machine and promote or make this server Adobe Source server. So hope this video informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.